what I want to do is just introduce myself to you all just a little bit, just so you can kind of hear who I am. Because sometimes it's nice to know who someone is before you listen to what they have to say. And so I don't want to pretend that I have any credibility over any of you. And so just my story is I was a punk in high school, and I did everything I could to run away from God. And then I found this beautiful girl that I wanted to date. And she said the only way that she would date me is if I would go to youth group with her. And I said, sure, why not? A bunch of weirdos are hanging out there. I can have some fun. And I went, and I loved the weirdos. I became a weirdo. And she actually is now my wife. We've been married for almost 10 years. And so I won a lot there. God was so gracious and faithful to me there. But then I went into student ministry. I actually was going to be a massage therapist and going into college. And then I had a full ride to go play football at Cal U. That fell through. And the only school that would take me at that point was Geneva, which has a student ministry degree. So I went into student ministry, and I've been running in ministry ever since then. So I've been in full-time ministry, quote unquote, for about 12 years. And so student ministry, I was a student pastor for almost 10. And currently right now I'm at Grace Community Church, which is right down the road. And I've been there for about almost 4 years. And my role is the family pastor. And so I oversee birth through young marrieds and all the ministry that happens in between. And I also speak about 20 to 25 times a year on stage. So that's kind of my role, a little bit of who I am. Like I said, I've been married for about almost 10 years. I have 4 kids. They are 7, 6, 4, and 18 months. So they're all young and crazy and wild, and it's been a lot of fun. And so the way I want to speak to you all today is I want to speak to you as a parent, someone who has kids, who really wants to see the next generation win. And so the people who've been major influencers in my life, like Larry Betancourt is another person. I just want to reciprocate that to the next generation as best I possibly can. And so what's so cool about student ministry and being a youth pastor is you can have a lot of fun, you can make a lot of relational connections, but the real important thing is, and we often miss this in student ministry, is your relationship with the parents. So I have a quick question, since my introduction has been long. How many of you in this room are parents? Is there any parents in the room? Nice, awesome. So you guys can understand that you wanting the next generation to win and having that success, which is super important. But then I think some of you who are in the room who are student pastors, you care about the next generation as well. Because you didn't jump into a field that doesn't pay well, that has crappy hours, and sometimes it's just so life-draining and miserable because you don't love the kids. You want to see this next generation win. And so it's so important for us to understand that as a student pastor, your role is more than just a student pastor. You should be mini family pastors. So Alyssa said something on stage that I wrote down, that's why I'm looking at my notes here. She said something on stage that really I think is a great segue into what we're going to talk about. Her point was that we need to build up the families. And so the thing that I think is so important for us is that the church's job in general, your job as a student pastor, isn't to raise the kid. A lot of youth pastors make that mistake. We think it's our job to do everything we can to raise that child. That's simply not our job. Our job is to come alongside them. Our job is to come alongside the families. And so when we understand the main principle and the main aspect of our role, it changes how we actually live out our role. And so you're not just the cool older brother or the cool uncle or cool aunt in your role. You're a minister to the family. You play a significant role. And so what I want to do over the next 25, 30 minutes is just to kind of give you some things that I've learned. The first is, I think when we're having a relationship with these families and these students, we need to do a couple things. The first thing is we need to acknowledge what we don't know. How many of you in this room came into student ministry thinking you knew everything? I'm the only one going to raise my hand because I did. I came into the student ministry in 2011 thinking I was the man, thinking I had it all figured out. Within the first 6 months, I had a review at 6 months, and I was about to be fired because I didn't know what I was doing. I just didn't. And we think that we do. And it's so important for us as we get into student ministry relating to these families to first and foremost admit that you don't know anything, especially when it comes to raising kids, because a lot of us in student ministry aren't raising kids at that time. And so the first thing that I think is so important, acknowledge what you don't know. How do you acknowledge what you don't know, though? You ask questions. Some of us are afraid to ask questions. Some of us are afraid to learn. Craig Rochelle has a saying that I love. He says, the best leaders are learners. The best people who are leading are the ones who are willing to learn something. And so we have to ask questions. If you're not asking questions of the students, if you're not asking questions of the parents, you're actually hurting yourself. You're doing yourself a disservice because you don't know everything. And it's not our job to know everything as student pastors. And so first and foremost, to acknowledge what you don't know is to simply ask questions. The parents who are leading the students that you lead, they know a couple things that you don't know. They know the everyday details of their child. They do. They know what they love, what they don't love, what excites them, what doesn't excite them. You may know some of those things, but you don't know all of those things or the history behind those things. Parents, they know the grind. If you're a parent in the room, you know what it's like to raise a toddler. It's so crazy. Toddlers are just wild. They're just crazy, and they have this intention just to say it's mine, it's mine, it's mine, and they don't share. They're just wild. They're becoming people who make decisions. Oftentimes they're bad decisions. As a parent, you have to put boundaries around them. You have to tell them no, which is hard, and so it can be tough. There's a grind that happens. When you get into the teenage years, Matt can speak to this better than I can. The teenage years have to be extremely tough because the kids start thinking they know everything, and so it's a constant grind as a parent. And so you as a student pastor need to understand that as you're coming alongside these parents, that you need to ask questions of what is their everyday details, the things that they're struggling with. What is the grind that the students are going through? Are they struggling academics? Are they struggling socially? Are they fitting into conversations? Are they playing sports, excelling at sports? What is the daily grind? And then what is the success of that child? Now, I want to ask a question, and if you want to answer, you can. How many of you can answer some of those questions about the students that you lead? Somewhat? Now, it's not going to be 100%, but we have to be humble in ourselves to go out and ask those questions. And so another thing that I don't think we know that we need to acknowledge of what we don't know is that what it takes to be their parent. Again, your role isn't to be their mom and dad. Your role is to come alongside mom and dad. Your role is to help equip these kids when they get spiritual questions or deepening questions that they don't have an answer to. Your role is to help those parents to answer those questions. Our church, we use Orange Curriculum. Does anybody use Orange Curriculum in their church? Do you guys do? Orange Curriculum is an awesome thing. Reggie Joyner is the creator of it. And one of the things that he says is that on average, the church, quote unquote, gets intentional conversation with a kid for about 40 hours per year. Whereas the families and the parents, they get about 3,000 hours. So if you think you're going to make a huge difference in 40 hours, you're mistaken. You're not. You're going to make differences, you're going to make impacts, and I'm not trying to be a want kind of thing. But our job is to do our best to resource those parents. And so can you ask them, what does it take to be a parent of Ben Archer? What does it take to be a parent of Brian? I just met him a little bit ago. What does it take for you as a parent to lead them? What are you learning about your child? What's going to be helpful for me is that I'm trying to understand who they are and how they're growing and their background and their story. What can I do and what can I be learning as their student pastor or their family pastor or their youth director or whatever role it is that you're playing? And then acknowledging another thing that we don't know is how to discipline. Sometimes we have these kids come in our student ministry, and there are some non-negotiables that we're going to make, right? We're going to make some non-negotiables. You're not supposed to punch another kid. Most of the time, the cussing and swearing isn't what we want. But sometimes we think, again, it's our job to be their parent. We start setting up all these boundaries and these barriers in their life, and that's not our role either. It's hard to understand that sometimes, but it's not our role. Our job is solely to point them to who Jesus Christ is. And so I want to recap that real quick. The first thing that is so important for us as student pastors to understand is to acknowledge what we don't know. You have to ask questions. If you're unwilling to ask questions, you are unwilling to be a leader. And if you're looking in your leadership role and there's nobody following you, no students coming, no parents involved, that means you're not leading anybody. That means you're not asking yourself the right questions and you're not asking the parents the right questions. We have to acknowledge what we don't know. We have to see what those needs are that the parents have so we can come alongside them and partner with them. But then the second thing, so acknowledge what you don't know, but then I think it is important for us to acknowledge what we do know. So what do you know in student ministry? I shouldn't assume. Is everybody here a student pastor or student director or youth director? Is that what you guys are doing? kind of, a hodgepodge of different things. Awesome. Acknowledging what you don't know. And so I think that's an important step for us. Like I said, I failed many different times. I've just failed in leadership, and my heartbeat is I'll fail falling forward rather than failing backwards. I'll try something, and if it doesn't work, I'll learn from that and move on. I think many of us need to acknowledge what we don't know, but again, you've been gifted. Some of you in this room might be more gifted or more equipped to talk about this topic that I'm talking about right now. You all are gifted in a unique way. You all have special callings and special abilities that God has given you that he hasn't given me. I'm like Ben. I am not a detail person. You asked me to calendar, you got the wrong guy. You asked me to schedule a meeting, you got the wrong guy. I was texting Ben yesterday. Ben, hey, what's the topic again? Just want to make sure that I have the right things going on. What time am I supposed to be here? I know that's not my gifting. But what I do know is that if you give me scripture and you ask me to lead and to teach, I know that's something I'm called to do. I know that's something that God has gifted me in. And I don't always love doing it, but it's something God has gifted me in. And so you all have to know, what are your strengths? What are you good at? How many of you are administrative in here? Like the details is your thing. Any detailers in here? How did you all make it into the room? How many of you had a detailer, a wife, or girlfriend, or a boyfriend, or someone that got you into this room? Does anybody have that? Okay, thank you, at least being honest. We have to know what our giftings are. So acknowledging what you're good at is super important. Because when you know what you're skilled at and you know what your gifting is, then you can leverage that and utilize that to deepening and growing relationship with your students and with your parents. And so I have a student pastor we just hired. He just started. He is extremely detail-oriented, extremely detail-oriented. You know what he's been doing well? He's been scheduling meetings with parents. I don't do that well because I suck at scheduling. He does that so well. That's his gifting. He schedules times. He contacts parents. He gives them a call. Anybody make phone calls anymore? How many of you are still afraid to order pizza? Anybody in this room? When I was a student pastor, there was kids in youth group who literally were afraid to pick up the phone and order pizza. I don't understand that. We're from a different generation, but if they can't text it or Uber it, they don't do it. But knowing what you're gifted at, I'll digress. Knowing what your skill set is, and then leveraging that to meet with parents and to connect with parents and to connect with students. Some of you are gifted athletes. Some of you are just naturally strong people with charisma and are leaders who can just lead. You don't even know you can do it, but you're doing it because if you're that person who just has a whole bunch of people surrounding you all the time, you are a naturally gifted leader. It's just how it is. Some of you are big thinkers. Some of you are artsy. Some of you dream. Some of you do stuff with books and you can write curriculum. Whatever your gifting is, it's so important for you to know what that is. And so before you can lead somebody, you need to know where your gifting is. And so acknowledging what you don't know, that's really important, but acknowledging what you do know. There are details that you can learn about your parents and about those kids. That you don't have to have it all figured out. There's a grind that your parents go through that are helping to raise their kids. What is that grind? Do you know, if you're being totally honest with yourself right now, can you name the top 3 issues that your parents at your church are dealing with your students? I know what mine are. What are yours? What are the 3 big issues that your parents are dealing with? I'm sure what Ben talked about today is probably one of them. But what else? Do you know? And if you don't know, that's okay. That's why we're here. We're learning. You need to know. And so you have to ask those parents, what are you dealing with and what are you wrestling with on a daily basis? What is that grind that your child is going through or what they're experiencing at their school district or whatever is going on in their life? What is that thing so that I know how I can best utilize my skill set and my resources to make a difference and an impact in that situation? And how are you celebrating successes with these kids and with these families? That's so important. Acknowledging that there are moments where these parents are winning. And so when you see parents that are winning, acknowledge that. What gets rewarded gets repeated. I've seen parents who have done some things in as far as discipline or teaching or guiding their kids. And it's not something I have to do or not something our student pastor has to do, but writing them a note saying, hey, I observed this and I saw this happen. I want to celebrate. That's a huge win. You've made a huge difference and an impact in the kids. And not only that, now they're transferring that to the kids that they're connecting with. So celebrating is super important. Another thing that I think it's important for you to acknowledge that what you do know is, are you willing to sacrifice time? Are you willing to give up the most valuable commodity that you have? Because if you're not, student ministry is not where you should be. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but if you're not willing to sacrifice your time to invest into these kids, to meet them where they are, to invite yourself over to dinner at parents' houses, you're not in the right calling. And you think that's weird, but when I was successful in student ministry, which I'm not really in student ministry anymore, when I was successful in student ministry, it was when I went up to parents and said, hey, Ben, Alyssa, I see your kid every week. I would love to have dinner with you. Can I come to your house? And we just talk for an hour. That's all it needs to be. It doesn't have to be a fancy meal. It can be chicken nuggets, French fries, and I like honey mustard. So honey mustard, can I have a conversation with you just to see what's going on in your family and how I can best partner with you? That is uncomfortable for you to do. And believe it or not, I am an extreme introvert. Like my wife will tell you, who's the opposite of me. She's very extroverted, very loud, very in people's faces. I would rather be at home, reading a book, playing a video game, playing catch by myself, or throwing the ball off a wall, like doing something. I just want to be by myself. And so for me to invite myself over to a parent's house was very uncomfortable. But the best conversations I had about student ministry happened over those meals. And if you're unwilling to invite yourself to a parent's house, then maybe you don't have a growing relationship with those parents. And so then that's a question that you need to answer is, what can I do to get to know these parents a little bit better? And so when you have those conversations, I have done 5 weddings this year, 5 weddings of old student ministry kids whose parents and kids have come to me and say, hey, can you do our wedding? Because what you did in that, and this isn't to celebrate to make me look, I'm nothing, but to say, hey, you've made an impact in my child's life. Can you officiate their wedding for them? Or, hey, you were with me at dinner and at the worst seasons of my life. Can you officiate my wedding? That's huge. That's lifelong change that has happened just because I asked them to have chicken nuggets with me. It's a huge deal. And it sounds really stupid, but you can do that. Acknowledge what you do know. Is that you do know, especially as you're younger and before you have kids, you have the time to make a difference. You just have to show up. And so it's really important for you to know that. So you have to sacrifice your time, but you also have to sacrifice your talent, which means God has given you a talent. He's given you a gift. And you've heard the parable of the talent story before. Are you willing to invest it, or do you want to bury it? If you bury it, then again, you're missing a huge opportunity. But if you invest it, it's risky. You'll take loss, you'll take hits, it'll be painful, but there'll be growth, and God will see you through in ministry tenfold. That's just how God operates. Are you willing to risk that talent? There's time and there's talents. And then, here's the thing that I've learned, is parents have the keys. Did you know that? When people jump into student ministry for the first time, they think, I got to win the seniors over. I would argue, you don't. You got to win over the 10th graders. 10th grade and below, because the 10th graders and below, their parents are the ones who have the keys. And so if you have a relationship with the parents and you say, hey, I really want Ben to be at student ministry, you know who's driving them there? Not themselves. Mom and dad are dropping them off, and which gives you extra opportunity to invest into their life and to get to know them a little bit better. And so if you're starting out in student ministry and if you're just building, connect with those parents, create that deepening relationship, and focus on those 10th graders. Because they're old enough where they can be leaders, and they're cool enough where the younger generations will look at them, but they're not too far removed from the seniors who are like, oh, he's going, that's fine, I'll go. Oh, she's going to be there? That sounds cool. And hey, I was a senior and my wife was a 10th grader, so I was chasing after a girl in 10th grade, and it got me involved in the student ministry. So not to say that it's always going to work that way, but I probably should have saved that for another time, another conversation. Also made me look really bad. She looked older, okay? And so investing into those parents because they have the keys. They drop their kids off. And so sowing those seeds, man, it really is impactful. So acknowledging what you don't know, asking questions. Acknowledging what you do know, utilizing your gifts, utilizing your skill set, taking time to actually invest in the parents, taking time to actually go to a kid's a musical, or go to a kid's hockey game, or their choral concert. Those things sometimes are boring as all get out. I've done it all. They're so boring sometimes. But the parents who celebrate the fact that you made time to be there for their kid when you didn't have to be, and you're actually getting paid to do it, which is kind of cool, you get opportunity to invest and make a difference in that kid's life. Those things, I call them change in your pocket. It's you're pulling change out of your pocket and putting it into Ben's pocket and saying, hey, I'm investing in you, I'm giving you this, that one day in the future you can say, hey, you know what, I would love for your child or for your student or for you to volunteer to be a part of what we're doing, and pulling some of that change out of your pocket. You've built clout, you've built relationship, and you've built an opportunity where they're going to serve you and you're going to serve them. And it's this vicious cycle, not in a manipulative way, not in a way to take advantage of anybody, but in a way to say, we're doing this for the kingdom. So acknowledging what you don't know. I'll digress, I'm taking too long, I apologize. Acknowledging what you do know. And then number 3, assure is A-S-S-U-R-E, or ensure the partnership. put yourself out there. Just do it. You cannot be afraid to fail. And honestly, as a parent, I'd rather see a volunteer or a youth leader or a student pastor taking that effort and saying, hey, I want to come to dinner with you, and me saying, hey, no, I can't do that right now in this season of life, but I appreciate that. Or, hey, you know what? They showed up to my kid's t-ball game, which if you've ever been to a kid playing t-ball who's 4, it's not fun. They're just running around like crazy. It's like circus. They showed up. They were there. For you guys, just show up. Ensure that relationship. I have seen so many student pastors say to parents, I am going to be there, or I'm going to show up, or I'm going to take time with your kid, and we're going to go out to dinner and hang out, and not do it. That is so destructive in student ministry. If you cannot actually ensure that you're going to do whatever you say you're going to do, don't assure the parents that you will. Don't do that. Don't make that mistake. If you can't be there for their kid, or you can't make a difference for them in their relationship, don't make that bold claim that you're going to and make yourself a liar. It is so destructive in student ministries. I've seen student ministries fall apart because youth pastors couldn't come through on the promises that they've made. Now granted, we're all human. We all have good aspirations and good intentions, but stay within your skill set, stay within the things. Remind each family and parent that you are partnering with them. That's huge. Ben alluded to this a little bit when he was talking. When a kid comes to you and says, I'm having an issue, can we talk about it? It's saying to them, absolutely, I want to take this intentional time. Let's have a conversation, let's talk, but I need you to understand that I'm a partner with your parent. That they matter and their voice matters. And so I want you to know that there are some things that I can't keep confidential between you and I that I have to share with your parent. And it's reminding those parents, hey, I might be having conversations with your kids, and I need you to know that I am not an adversary against you. I am an ally. I am for you, and I want to make a difference in your family's life. And so I need you to know that if your student comes to me and says, hey, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with pornography or drugs, or there's abuse in my life, I need you to know as parents, I'm going to share those things with you. There are some things that I won't share because it's things that I think can be managed in a relationship as a leader and as a student. But if there are things that are pressing, that are huge, that are big, I want you to know that I am for you and for your family, and I will disclose all that information, and I will let your child know that I'm going to disclose that information. And so many student pastors say, well, then the kid's never going to share anything with you. That's not true. It's not true. I've had so many kids who've come to me and say, hey, can I tell you something? And the first thing I say to them is, hey, listen, there are some things that I just cannot keep confidential. I need you to understand that going into this conversation. But everything that I say to you or that I would relay, pass along is to let you know that I am actually looking at your best interest. I want to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to protect you and to protect your family. Stupid computers. To protect you, and I can't name my password. Son of a gun. To protect you and your family, to make sure that you're in the safest position that you can, and I'm setting you all up for success. It's so important. And then the last thing is just to know their story. What I want you to do, the best way you can assure the parents is by getting to know their story. So mom and dad, what was your childhood like? What's your understanding of church? If you could write out my job description for me as a student pastor, what would be 4 or 5 things that you would think that you would love to see me do? Or you would love to see our church do? That we can come alongside of you and your family. So the question I have to ask you, there's a book that I've read, it's called It's Personal. It's from the Orange Book. It's a great book. Do you know your family's names? It's called It's Personal. Do you know your family's names? I think I actually have it in my book bag. If your families are walking up to you in student ministry and dropping their kids off, could you call out their parents' names by heart? Do you know them? Or do you have to wait till you see a name tag? That's a real question. Do you know their story? Do you know their past? Do you know what they're struggling with, what they're wrestling with? Do you know the possibilities of what they can do? Do you see the giftings within them? Have you built that relationship? And have you assured the parents that you're going to do everything you can, short of sin, to make a huge difference and an impact in that family's life? Because it all goes back to Deuteronomy 6, verses 4 through 9. It's called the Shema, if you're familiar with the Bible. And our job is to equip the parents so they can live out that calling, to honor God with all their heart, to put all their focus on God, to set up this moments in their life where we can equip those parents that their faith is so evident that it's like something tied around their head or their wrist. It's so crystal clear that as a church, we're resourcing the parents as best as we can so they can make a difference in the next generation. And so if you want your student ministry to win, all cards on the table, it's not about how many students you have coming to your group. It's about the deepening relationships that you have with the parents as a student pastor. And when you have that relationship growing with the students or with the parents, the relationships with the students is naturally just going to grow. Your student ministry is going to blow up. And I'll end it with some of the things that we're doing at Grace. One of the things as I came on 4 years ago, as I said, what I've noticed at Grace Community Church is that we weren't doing anything to partner with parents. So what I've created at our church is called the Parent Partnership. Super simple. I'm not a smart guy, so I do things very simple and it's very easy. We want to partner with you as parents. Above all things, from kids ministry, from birth, all the way up to young marrieds, we want to do everything possible that we can to partner with you. How do we do that? Well, I've had I had a bunch of families 3 years ago come to me and say, right before COVID, our families are really struggling with mental health. And so I had this great idea to launch a mental health event that ended up getting postponed till last year. But when we threw it, we were thinking, okay, it's COVID, no one's going to show up. We had over 500 families show up. And it wasn't because we were doing anything great or we had all the answers or that we were the best. It was because I listened to a felt need that the parents were sharing and we did something about it. We learned as much as we could about the topic and we did our best to resource them as best as we possibly can. And you know what? Because of that, more students and more families are coming and connecting to Grace. Not because they see that we want something from them, but they see that we want something for them. We want to partner with them as much as we possibly can to resource them. So I hope that was helpful for you. I hate these kind of moments sometimes because I feel like I'm just talking your ear off and not giving you time to ask questions or to challenge or to say, I got something better than what you shared. And so I'm a learner here too. And so I would love to open up for question and answer in as much time as you have. But if you have something that can teach me and coach me and correct me, I am all for it as well. Patrick.
What did the mental health event look like? Like, how did you do that?
How did I promote it?
Yeah, well, no, even how did you facilitate it? Like, what did you do? What did that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we did was we first met with, I can't tell you how many families we met with. There was a lot of families. I went to dinner, I brought groups out and just said, hey, what are you struggling with? Always with mental health. We just don't know how to navigate with suicide, or we don't know how to navigate with cutting, or just this part of it was the gender dysphoria and stuff going on there. Just my kids has high anxiety. What do we do? And so we have a counseling team at Grace. It's a partnership with our church. Got some resources from them, and then we said we're going to gather people together as much as we can. So we promoted it in the school, and we promoted it twice from stage at Grace about a month before, and all those people showed up. And so the event itself was I hired 2 professional speakers to come in who deal specifically with that. And one session was for the parents specifically, just, hey, this is how you handle these questions, and this is as a parent. And then the other side was for students only through 6th through 12th grade. And hey, kids, this is what you're dealing with. The guy, his name is Chris Sasser. He's like, I'm writing a book specifically called Baggage on what you guys are talking about. And so here's some resources for you as kids to deal through it. Now, I'm summing that up very quickly, but that was the heart of the event. And then we fed them because I'm a firm believer. If you feed them, they will come. And so I feed everybody. I also love food, so. Yes?
Do you have that content available?
The whole event?
Yeah.
Yep.
Event.
Yeah, I can definitely make that available too. Yep.
Please.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
for me personally, but
Yeah.
even like, if I can get that from you, I can send it out.
Yeah. Will you remind me? Because I will make a promise to you. I will make a promise to you, then I will forget. Yeah. I have to text my wife right now. But I am serious. I apologize. It's just not a skill set. I'll make promises sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm definitely a firm believer, I want to go to all their events and all their things. Sometimes it makes it tough on family life at home, and as somebody with kids, I have kids, and for those of you who don't yet, it's a good practice to have to make sure we're making time at home for families too. Is there anything you did or any advice you could give on when you're going to events in the evenings or going to see kids, like how you're intentional about also creating time for your family, your wife, and your kids?
So, great question. I'm a workaholic. So, 5 years ago, I would have said I'm the worst person to ask that question to. But my wife, anybody familiar with Enneagram?
Yes.
My wife's an Enneagram 8, so she's very direct, very straight to the point, and not afraid to hurt my feelings, which I admire and also fear about her. But she came to me a couple years back and said, "You're doing too many things." And she used scripture on me. She said, "You can't be all things to all people. That's just not how you're wired." And I want to be that way. So what we did was we set up a conversation where we have every week, and then we have every 6 months. And so the conversation is, the weekly is, "Hey, this is what I'm planning to do this week." And then she comes to me and says, "Well, this is what we have on our calendar. So here's the wiggle room that you have." And it's not like getting necessarily a stamp of approval, but it's just saying like, you have a 4-hour window on Wednesday. There's a time slot for you, so invite kids to do this or that, whatever you want to do, or go to that musical. And then you also have another one on Friday. These are the 2 time frames that you have this week. And then 6 months, what we would do is I would say, "Hey, here's some of the things that I know are coming up in the kids' lives that I'm meeting with." Again, this is 5 years ago, but here's the schedule. At that time, it was Butler. So here's Butler's schedule for lacrosse, for football, for choir, and for swimming. Can you see which ones that you think would be best for me to go to, that you think would have the most win as far as the many students being there, that I can create relationship with the parents? And so it was all about communication. And that's what it boiled down to is, hey, this is what my desire is, because I want to meet these students where they are, and I want to sit in the bleachers with the parents and have conversations with them, celebrating and cheering on their kid. Can you give me the best times that I can do that? Because I'm not a detailer and I overcommit. So I hope that's helpful to you. Yeah.
Taking that a step further, Chance, like how have you equipped your leaders as well to do the same thing? Maybe just, hey, by yourself. Like, some of our leaders have way better relationships with certain students,
Yep.
with certain families. What were some practical things that, I mean, obviously you lead by example, but as well as like, hey, Riley, hey, you go now and do this kind of thing, or just at those games, because like up where we are, there's a lot of schools that we're kind of our ministry is part of, and there's a lot of games going on at the same time. Friday night football, whatever it may be, or let's be real, JV football on Saturday morning, like whatever it could be. So how are you even equipped the leaders to take that beyond?
Sure.
Which also can help with the family side of things if you only have 4 hours.
Yep. Yeah, so the first and foremost thing is saying, very similar to what Jesus did, not equating me or anybody with Jesus, but saying, "Follow me. Let me show you what this looks like," because the biggest reservation that most leaders have is, "I don't know what to do when I'm there. I'll show up, but who do I talk to?" And so I would always say, I'm just going to use Ben because I know him. "Ben, hey, will you come with me? I just want to take you. We're going to go to this chorus concert, and there's always an intermission, so I want to show you what I do there. So hey, Ben, let's go. We're just going to sit down. I'll pay for your ticket. We'll watch when their name's called or whatever it is. We'll cheer for the kid or those kids. We'll be excited. We'll make our presence known. And then I'll show you who the parents are. And so let's go have a conversation with them. And this is what I do. Here's the questions that I generally ask. Hey, when your kid was practicing and going through all this rehearsal, what was the toughest thing for you as a parent, and what was the most exciting thing for you as a parent now that you're seeing them go through this?" And so that question alone usually takes up the whole intermission. And so it's just showing them, and then recapping. So I always evaluate. I'm an evaluator by nature. So I will leave, I will go to my car, and I will evaluate everything I just said and pick it apart and say, "You idiot, you could have said this, you should have said that." And so what I'll do is I'll say to the leader, "Hey, let's evaluate this night. Let's have a conversation. It could be through text or a phone call. Let's see some things that are good. Okay, I think you're capable of doing that now on your own, assuming whoever that leader is." And then building disciples, creating leaders, specifically with our small group leaders, people who are having those intimate, detailed conversations with those kids, equipping them to do that. So. What other questions? Or is there something that you wish I would have addressed that I didn't address? I won't be offended.
What do you send out when you were in student ministry? Do you send out any type of email, newsletter, whatever, informational for parents to keep them in the loop of what's going on?
Yeah.
How did you do that?
So my opinion, some of you will hate me, newsletters aren't effective. Church bulletins really aren't effective anymore. So what I do and what I've encouraged our student guy to do is, it sounds really stupid, but I have him mail out magnets to our parents, and there's magnets have the next 3 months of student ministry, what's happening. So they put them on their fridge, they see them. If you have kids in school, my kids have a calendar at school that we put on our fridge. We look at it every day to see what's going on. That's just another add value to put on the fridge or somewhere where they can see it, where they know what dates are coming up. But that means you have to be prepared as a student ministry. So that's one.
Yeah.
Texting, we have a system at our church that we just can mass text people, and we're not afraid to blow people's phones up. Kids like it. And actually, they start texting back, which is really cool, asking questions and stuff. And then we have our small group leaders. They all have individual group me's. And so they have, in their 7th grade small group boys leaders, they have a group me for that group. And they communicate. It has parents in one channel, and then students in another channel, and then all three of the leader, student, parent together in one channel. And so we just try to divvy out the communication there. You can never over-communicate. I don't care what anybody says, you just can't. So over-communicate as much as possible.
So you have like 3 different group me's technically then?
For each grade level, yep.
Okay. Wow.
And then we have Instagram, which I was trying to do. I'm too old for that. I just, gosh. And so whatever, the Be Real is the newest one. I don't know if you guys probably all know what that is, but Be Real is another one. So we have our student pastor. He just does these Be Real. It's like a picture of where you're at, what you're doing in that moment, and then it just shows for everybody. I don't know the purpose of it really, but so we're leveraging whatever social media we can in the healthiest way possible to reach the kids where they're at.
So how do you balance that? Because some of the social media is really, really bad right now.
Yeah.
You know, like
It's being a presence. I love looking at Ben Archer's stuff because everything is encouraging. It's about leadership. It's about his family. It's being a light into a dark, dark world. The light is more attractive than the dark, and so you'll stick out. So I knew who Ben was before Ben knew I knew who he was. So because I saw him on social media.
So what do you use? Like what areas of social media are you involved in?
So personally, I'm very limited. And so in fact, I don't even have social media on my phone. It's on my wife's phone because I don't want my kids to be the image that they see all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a lot easier for me to take my wife's phone and then feel guilty, like I gotta give it back. So that helps me have, because I don't honor screen time, so I should be more disciplined, but that's my discipline. So there's my bumpers in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm not on every platform just because I just can't. And so I know that in student ministries, we chose one, and we just lean into that. Personally, that's how we do it because it just is a beast. It's always evolving. So that's how I navigate.
So which one did you all choose? Instagram?
Well, yeah, but that's basically dead, you know, because we're still, that's where we're at.
Yeah.
We're still on Instagram, but like you just said, Be Real.
Yeah.
It just adapts so quickly, and so we've stayed there because we see the kids have this other platform and Instagram.
Yeah.
So we just lean into that. That's the one that I understand and can manage.
I didn't mess with TikTok. I couldn't do it. Couldn't bring myself to it. My wife uses it. I'm like, I don't understand it.
I guess I just need to pick up hey, this is your job.
Yeah.
So Pastor Ben, for parents, let them know what you're doing with parents.
Yeah. What's the question? I'm sorry.
So what are you doing with parents in Facebook, Instagram? How do you communicate with them? So we're talking about students here, but how do you communicate with them with that?
Are you okay if I share that?
Sure. Yeah.
And so how I navigate with parents is we have a private Facebook group, and anybody in here is welcome to join it. And so where parents can be real with each other and network with each other. So the news bulletin aspect, we put that out on social media. And so that's the avenue to do that. We do weekly content, midweek content, where we talk about real things that they're navigating, whatever it is, to be a resource. But it's not a preaching avenue, it's more of a relational avenue to build a community within the church. From grandma book, because that's, basically what it's become.
And so being a parent, grandma books, where we're all at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Utilizing Facebook as a tool. We've found at Grace, email is actually our best form of communication with parents. Our Facebook posts are terrible. We get no reciprocation, no views on it at all. Instagram, no parents are looking at it, it's all students. But when we send an email, we get 90% of open emails and views. So I don't know why that's the way it is. I as a parent, don't usually look too much at emails, but emails has been our main form of communication. Actually, we get parents if I forget or we don't send out a detailed information of what's going on, we get people who say, hey, we need to know that information. It's the next 3 months. Where's our magnet? What's on the calendar so we can know what's going on?
So how you getting 10th graders, 11th graders, 12th graders giving you their parents' email?
Coercion. No, it's when they come in, it's just like, hey, we have this form that we do, and I always say it kind of nonchalantly, like, hey, JJ, nice to meet you, man. I'm so glad you're new with us today. Would you mind coming with me? We're going to fill out this form real quick. All it is just a quick information, just to get your name, your number, and your email. We're not going to bother you. We're not going to ask you about your car insurance. We might send you some pizza one day, but other than that, we're just getting your information, and then you lock it in. Most kids are actually pretty cool with giving up their parents' info. Occasionally you might not, but for me, at least from my experience, we haven't had any issues with that. I was just kidding. It's like a joke. It breaks it. It breaks the ice. It breaks the ice. Yeah. So I know you introverts are like me. I always have 1,000 questions that I'm just afraid to ask. Just go ahead if you feel comfortable. Go ahead and ask.
This is for you, but also this is just a mass one.
Sure.
When we're talking about reaching students, what is the most effective way that you guys have seen to fully reach the students, whether it's text, Instagram, what is
Define reach. When you say reach.
Reach is in anything in the sense of communication for events.
Are you in your ministry or outside of the ministry?
Outside.
Okay.
So getting.
Well, I mean, for both.
So yeah, that's a great clarified question. So
The reason
getting.
why I ask this is because, like, when we're talking about like social media, so I do the social media, I do Instagram,
Sure.
and I see the numbers, I'm sorry, the statistic, majority, I get parents. You know what I mean? Same thing with
Interesting.
Facebook. There's a lot of parents. I'm like, that's great, that's wonderful, but I want to tell the students about this.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So there's text messages, which is true, but you have a lot of kids, they don't like the group text, right? They
Yeah.
just don't reply. Email, they don't do that. You know what I mean? So what is it that you guys have seen has been the number one, like, oh yeah, we get people that constantly reply back to this, or this is the main source that we
Sure.
reach them?
For us, it's the biggest success stories we have are with our small group leaders and Group Me. So that conversation, literally, because I have the ability to hop into those channels, if I hop in, sometimes like the amount of conversation that's happening, it's like, as a non-detail person, it blows my mind. Just the things, the questions that their kids are asking. And what I love about our leaders is, again, we make them sign a 5-year covenant to join our student ministry, and we take it seriously. It's like, hey, you need to be available to these kids. They might send you a Group Me late at night. Can you answer it as best you can, blah, blah, blah. And they respond to those questions day in and day out. So social media, where I look at it, and I don't mean to diminish anything that you're doing, is this is a light. This is a signal. Hey, there's something going on over here. If you get connected, great. But from there, it's the relationship building. And so the social media is just another tool to get people in the building or connected to an event that you're doing, an encounter, or whatever it is that you have going on. And then utilizing personal relationship to make the follow-ups happen, if that makes any sense. I don't know if some people may do something different. Yeah?
As a small group leader, you're talking about the group meetings and these conversations. Started with 5th grade this year. I have texted and started a Facebook group, and I have had one parent respond. So other than like standing at the door stalking the parents, I'm going to be with these girls for at least 4 years. How do I create that relationship when I'm just like... You're
not going to like my answer.
No, go ahead.
So what I always say to parents is, to leaders who are having that issue, is to stalk those parents. So what I do is strategically on nights when the parents are dropping their kids off, I put leaders in the parking lot and say, so I'll use Pat. Sorry, Ben, I'm done with you. I'll use Pat. No, Pat, you're the 9th grade boy leaders. Pat, do you know who those kids are? You should absolutely know who those are, and you should absolutely know who those parents are. If you don't, you're going in the parking lot, you're going to stand in front of entrance D, and I need you to go up to the cars. If you see those kids jumping out, say, hey, Mom, wait up 1 second. I just want to show you my face, get to know who you are for a second. My name's Chance. I'm the small group leader. I would love to connect with you more. And it's that 1 second or 10 seconds of being risky and crazy. Again, as an introvert, I hate doing it, but as taking that 1 second just to be risky for a moment, the relationship building, it happens. And so actually what usually happens is I get a line of cars that are built up, and Patrick's just sitting there talking to these parents, and there's one window down, and all these parents are like, I want to talk to him too. I want to get to know, and it just kind of builds off of that. Then that's hey, let's get connected to Group Me. This is where I do all my information, and you can go down to the details there. So being present in the parking lot is huge.
I actually did that organically. I didn't even plan on doing it. I had another leader doing a lesson, and they were in connection. They were
Bless you.
I went down in the parking lot because I saw cars out there. I just went from car to car saying hello and making my face
Yeah.
to them and just,
It's important.
connect with them. Yeah.
Knowing their name too, as their kids are coming out of the door, not saying, "Hey, what's your name tag?" It's, "Oh, you're Matt. What's up, man? Nice to see you, Matt. I'm glad you're back." Starting to know those names is huge. It takes training though.
Yeah, how do you do that with a big group? Like we have, our groups are in comparison aren't
Yeah.
big, but how do you do that?
So we have a photographer. They take pictures all the time, and there's pictures that we use for like social media posts and stuff. All of our kids have name tags on. So what I do is just like an old directory. I look at those pictures and I say, oh, like I'll take a picture of this room. Oh, that's Connor, that's JJ, that's Brandon. So, and I'll start trying to memorize their names because I'm a face person. I'm not a name person. And just
Name tags every week,
yeah, we do, yeah,
like this?
yeah. Not like that. We have like a printout. It's like a printout tag. It's similar, but not. It's,
Okay.
yeah.
I know a little trick I do. It's up to you guys if you do it or not. But if I see someone and I get their name, I take a note in my phone of how they look and describe them. Like
It's brilliant.
tall student with glasses. Yeah. Only person I ever showed this note is to my wife. So 'cause it seems like it's really like okay, like you're just really profiling people. But it helps me remember. Oh,
That's knowing your skill set and utilizing it, man. That's a gift.
And before I see him, I'm like, okay, that kid again. Hey, McLeod!
And I bet they love it. And the sweetest sound to a person's ears is someone who is knowing their name, saying their name out loud. It's a big deal. Absolutely, yeah. Bringing in the biblical side, absolutely. That's why I love you, Ben. What other questions? Please don't be afraid to ask. Yeah, go ahead.
So with parents getting more passive in their parenting style, with allowing their students to go smoke weed, drink, operate in the LGBTQ community,
Yeah.
how do we encourage those parents that are bought in but are passive parents to bring their students to the events or to a small group?
Sure. So just to reframe the question so I understand it better, I'm going to use you, JJ. I'm sorry because I just got to know you. So JJ has a kid, and he's involved, but he doesn't care if his kid's involved with LGBTQ or anything like that. So you can't change a parent's mind, and you can't tell a parent what to do. So how do you meet them where they are? How you meet them where they are is you start asking questions, just like Ben was saying. It's being open. It's like, hey, I want to learn how you got here. But you can't just come out of the gate and be like, hey, JJ, we just met. What's up, man? Tell me about LGBTQT. That's like, no, that ain't going to work because you don't have any ground to stand upon there. There's no relational clout. It could take years, man. But here's the thing. I will say this as a parent. If you take a moment to invest in me, to hear my story, to ask a question, to say what's going on in my kid's life, and just actually intently listen, like a lot of student pastors will ask that question and they're like yelling at the kid over there playing dodgeball. It's like, why are you even asking me a question? It's like, no, lock eyes with me. You have leaders who are doing their job, and their job is to make sure the kids are safe. Lock eyes with me and answer some questions or ask me some questions. And I would love to do that. And then if you do that, I guarantee you I'm going to drive home and call my wife and say, hey, listen, Connor, he took 30 seconds to say hello, to hear my name. We should invite him over for dinner, man. I think it would be nice to get to know him. Don't minimize the small things. The small things add up to make a huge difference. And so with that, you can't just jump in and say, like, I don't want you, or you shouldn't be letting them do these things. You don't have the authority or the relational ability to do that. It's getting to know where they are and then resourcing them as they're asking you questions, because they will start asking you questions. Anything else? If this wasn't helpful to you, here's what I need you to do. I promise you, I'm an evaluator and I don't get offended easily. Tell Ben what I could do better, okay? Or what we can, and this session could be better for you to better resource you, so that if Ben ever does have me back, that I can make sure that I'm equipping and leading from a better position and resourcing you as much, because that's my heart. I want to help you as much as possible. If there's something I didn't cover and you just didn't want to ask it here, my emails, it's just my name, chance@mygcc.org. I'll give you my cell phone number. You can text me, you can call me. I just want to be a resource to you in any way that I possibly can. If you don't want that, I won't be offended either. That's not a big deal. But in any way that I can help you or come alongside you, that's my heartbeat. So I hope you're taking me up on that. So, and then you challenged me on that. Someone did that at Encounter. They texted me like 2 months later, and I saved them in my phone as Jaden from Encounter. And I was like, what's up, Jaden? How you doing, man? And so it worked out. So if you ever need anything, honestly, I'm a resource to you. If you want to learn anything that we're doing at Grace, I would love to be a help. I'm sure Ben will say the same thing at Victory as well. So any other questions? Yep.
When you're trying to like go after a older student become more mature and they start to make their own decisions, do you continue to ask questions to the parents, or do you talk to the student one-on-one?
So I always let the parent know what I'm doing. So if JJ has a kid, I'm going to say, hey, JJ, listen, I'm going to do my best to get to know Connor as much as I can. I just want you to know I might ask him to come hang out with a couple guys, and we'll go mini golfing or top golf or whatever it is that JJ likes to do, or Connor likes to do. We're going to do that. So I give them the heads up. Hey, I'm going to try to reach out to your kid, but then I follow up and I don't tell the kid, hey, I've reached out to your parents already. I just say, hey, Connor, you want to go mini golfing with a couple leaders? We're going to have some fun. We'll pay for you. Not a big deal. Just to get to know you a little bit. And 9 out of 10 times they'll say yes. So, especially if you have food. So.